If I would tell you to avoid buying one piece, it would be the Cartier Love bracelet, just because I find it so overpriced for what it is. Hello my friends, today we're doing another ranking video because frankly I love making them and you seem to really enjoy watching them, and I thought we could go over some of the most iconic classic luxury staples from some of the most iconic luxury houses. So think Chanel Classic Flap, Hermes Birkin, Cartier Love bracelet, and I'm sure you get the gist. These are the pieces that collectors would call a luxury staple or a wardrobe must have. But are they really that? Well, if you'd like to hear my thoughts on these popular pieces and see whether they are truly worth the money or not, then please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and keep on watching. If you've seen any one of my previous ranking videos, you will be familiar with this system and you'll understand completely what's going on. If you have not, make sure to have my dedicated playlist linked down below for you, just so you can catch up in case you're interested in my rating of different Hermes bags and accessories and even luxury brands in general. But if you've never seen this Steermaker app, let me introduce you to some of the categories really quickly. So on top we have must-haves. It's kind of self-explanatory. These are the pieces that I would definitely recommend that you invest in. These are the kind of pieces that you can buy once and you are set for life. You never have to worry about buying anything similar to it if you don't want to. Obviously, if it works out for you, you can continue buying different iterations of it, but you really don't have to because they will be a forever piece in your collection. Then we have worth a look. These are the kind of pieces that you can absolutely look into. I kind of understand the hype, but personally I'm not sure if they are a must-have or a holy grail for every single person out there. Then we have maybe pre-loved. This is a new category that I'm introducing. These are the kind of pieces that I would suggest that if you like the look of, you buy from a reliable, and let me emphasize that, a reliable pre-loved source, because it might not be worth the price if you get it directly from the boutique, but it's still a great piece to have. So if you ever find it on sale, which most of these pieces I doubt that you would, but if we find anything, obviously I'll make sure to highlight that. But you can find them at pre-love sites with quite a bit of a discount, and if you find a great deal, it's worth giving it a think. And then we have overrated. These are the pieces that are just, overrated. I wouldn't go out of my way to get my hands on any one of these pieces. They might not be horrific, but they're definitely not worth the hype that they have surrounding them. Let's jump straight in and start with the Lady Dior bag. And by the way, this lineup of pieces are things that I think collectors out there would call staples. These are the pieces that I know for a fact a lot of articles and people highlight as the best luxury pieces to invest in. I'm not sure if all of these I would agree are a great investment, which I'm sure we'll move on to. So don't think that these are staples according to me. These are just things that first came to mind when I thought of the brand and what the most popular piece from each house would be. But let's start with the Lady Dior, which is going to be an easy one because I think it's one of the most underappreciated and underrated luxury bags out there. I do think that there really aren't too many bags quite like it out there that are so elegant, so timeless, so chic, and so diverse at the same time, because I feel like the Lady Dior is one of those pieces that you can style in so many different ways and you can adapt and tweak it to fit your own individual aesthetic. You can be someone who appreciates a really classic, really sort of a ladylike wardrobe, or you can be someone who is a lot more stripped down and minimalist. And I do think the Lady Dior would suit you either way. I think there is so much that you can do with these bags, and I don't really think too many people are talking and raving about this particular piece. Yes, people know it, but I don't know if it has the same appeal as something like a Chanel Classic Flapwood, even though I think it is head and shoulders above in terms of what it would add to your collection. I love all the different sizes, I love all the different colors that it comes in. So for me, the Lady Dior is a huge winner. And if you have always wanted to add it to your collection, I think this would be a great time to do it, just because prices increase year after year after year on some of these classic pieces. But I do think that the Lady Dior at this point is still reasonable in the grand scheme of things. So for me, the Lady Dior would be a must-have. Let's move on to a piece that I don't think I ever talked about on YouTube, which is, I think, one of my favorites from this lineup, the Burberry trench coat. And if I look over there, I can actually see mine hanging on the back of a chair, just because this is a jacket that I pull out every September religiously, and I don't take it off until probably the beginning of December, when the temperatures really drop. The Burberry trench is a piece that I go for every single year. I absolutely adore it. I've had mine for a few years, and it's definitely not going anywhere from my collection. There are so many different shapes and colors and cuts of this piece at this point that I don't think anyone would struggle to find a shape or a style that suits them. At one point, at least when I bought mine, I remember that Burberry had this really cool sort of interface on their website where you could put in what you're looking for, and it helped you find the perfect trench coat for you. So it asked you for the fit, the length, the color. It was actually a really cool system. So I think I went for a more slim fit version of the trench coat, because they have different styles depending on what fit you prefer, and each one of them is named after a different neighborhood in London. So I think the one that I have is either called Chelsea or I have the Kensington. I'm not sure, but I'll link the exact same one that I have down below. And I actually sized down a size in mine just because I wanted to make sure that it's a little bit more fitted. I think where you can go wrong with this piece is if you go for either your regular size or if you size up, because it can really easily become overwhelming unless you of course prefer that oversized look in this. I would say if you find the right size, this is a piece that you will absolutely adore. I just really don't see the Burberry trench going anywhere anytime soon, and even if it does, I'll still very much enjoy it because it's incredible quality, it's flattering, and it doesn't really matter where you live, you'll find a time and a place for this. So for me, the Burberry trench is a must-have similar to the Lady Dior. And our next piece is the Fendi Baguette, which is a bag that I don't think I ever talked about before either, so here we go. Surprisingly, this is a bag that I quite like, even though I'm not usually a fan of these freakishly elongated bags like the Calicut. You know my thoughts on the Calicut, and if you don't, I'll have a video linked up here for you where I talk pretty extensively about that shape. But what makes the Baguette different for me from the Calicut, even though they are kind of a similar concept, is the structure. The reason why I don't like the Calicut is because it's so structured yet so long. It just kind of looks like a clown's bag. Whereas the Baguette I really like because it's long, but at the same time it's really kind of slouchy and relaxed and laid back. I do think it works a lot better with that aesthetic. I can just kind of envision someone really bohemic waking up in the morning, having a cup of coffee, grabbing this bag off their kitchen counter, and then getting on a spontaneous train ride to Paris. That's the kind of person I envision carrying this bag, and I think it very much works with that aesthetic. Now, is it a bag that I would pick up? Perhaps, even though bohemic is not the first thing that comes to mind when I think of myself, and definitely not when I think of my aesthetic. I think if I would recommend this bag to anyone, I would suggest that they pick it up in a fun texture, so maybe go for shearling or go for fur, or maybe even a grained leather rather than going for the traditional Fendi logo. I think those are probably better options at this point. But overall, the Fendi Baguette for me is worth a look. If you want to get the traditional logo, I would say maybe go for pre-loved, reliable pre-loved of course. But I do think that this is a piece that I could see some people pulling off just absolutely beautifully. Let's talk a little Versace, which again is sort of a foreign territory for me. But believe it or not, I do think that there is a time and a place for Versace. There are people who can style it so incredibly well, like I never could, because it's not really my aesthetic. But I do think or consider picking up one every time I'm in Miami because I just think it goes with the overall vibe and aesthetic of the place. So the first thing that came to mind when I thought of Versace were their silk shirts and their bathrobes, but whatever I say about one goes for the other too. And I think if you are someone who lives in a hot climate or if it really suits your lifestyle and your aesthetic, I think Versace is a great brand to go for. There is really nothing quite like them, and they sure know how to do over the top, probably better than anyone else. So I would say that Versace is worth a look, but if I bought a Versace piece, I would definitely go for one of their silk shirts, and you want to make it quite oversized. You don't want to go for anything with this really overwhelming print in something that is really fitted and skin tight unless it's a dress. But for me personally, I would definitely go for something a little bit more oversized and relaxed, something that just kind of screams resort vibes, because that's where I personally would envision myself wearing Versace. I don't know if this particular piece has been around long enough for it to be considered a timeless classic, but this is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Louis Vuitton and their piece that I know a lot of people enjoy out there, which is their so-called Palm Springs backpack. I know it's going to be an unpopular opinion, but I am not a particularly big fan of this piece. I get the idea that it's this mini backpack that you can use in different ways, but these multifunctional bags really rarely work. They tend to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. They just try to be so many different things that they cannot do one thing well enough. Because I get that it's kind of a backpack, but why would you want to use it as a clutch bag without the handles? Why would you want to, use it as a belt bag or as a crossbody bag? It doesn't look good in any way. I think you can pull it off as a backpack if you're really petite, but other than that, I don't think it's a style that anyone needs in their collection. The only place I could imagine people carrying this bag without it looking out of place is maybe a boozy sorority pool party, which I wouldn't know too much about. I don't know what people wear to those and what's the appropriate attire, because I went to college in New York where we had no Greek life whatsoever and people held parties at clubs, not at their dorms. But that is the kind of image and attire that I associate this piece with. So if you're going to Coachella or if you're going to a pool party, it's fun. But other than that, for me, this would be an overrated piece. If there was a definition of luxury classics in the dictionary, this is a picture that would have to be there, because I think when you think of great investments and luxury must-haves, this is the first bag that comes to mind for most, which is of course the Chanel double flap. Now I know that this is not the original classic bag, the 2.55 is, but I think a lot more people talk about this bag these days than the Chanel 2.55, even though personally I do prefer the 2.55. But when it comes to the classic flap, I think it's still a beautiful bag. There is a time and a place for it, but it has sort of lost its charm. I would love to know your thoughts on the Chanel Classic Flap. What's your stance? Please do share whether you agree or disagree with me. I would love to know. Personally, at this point, I would not feel comfortable coming on here and recommending you to go out there and spend the retail price on this piece, because I just don't think it's worth it. So if you really want to add a classic Chanel flap to your collection, maybe look into getting it pre-loved and see if you could get a little bit of a deal that way, although I'm not sure if you would. Or what I would do personally, if this is a bag that has always been on your mind, maybe go for this bag in a tweed finish that I think makes it so much more special. Everything that I just said about this bag doesn't apply for this style in tweed, because in tweed, I do think it looks incredibly special. Just because tweed is what I really associate with Chanel, so I would say maybe get this pre-loved. It's definitely not necessarily overrated because I do understand why people love this bag, but I just don't think it lives up to the insane price tag at this point. The Bottega pouch bag, which hasn't actually been around for that long, even though it does feel like it, but it's a bag that has made a name for itself quicker than any other bag that I can think of. This must be the most popular, the most duped, the most worn, and the most talked about bag of the past few years. And I can completely understand why. I love the idea of these oversized, cloudy, super soft, slouchy clutch bag. I think it came at a time when most brands were working on shrinking their bags rather than having an alternative for those who really don't want to carry around a tiny bag, even though it does come in smaller and larger sizes. I think it is a great bag, but is it worth the money? That's the question. For me, I would say that if you like the way this looks, go for it. I don't think you'd regret buying something like this, just because it's such a simple style that it's never really going to go out of style. You might put it away for a few years, but then you'll be able to pull it out again once the hype dies down. But personally, if I was to buy a bag similar to this, I would go for the Fendi First bag. I think it just has so many more intricate elements to it. It does come with a shoulder strap, which just makes life a lot easier. And you don't necessarily have to have the strap on. You can easily remove it, and even the attachment is something that you can hide inside the bag, so you would never know that there is a shoulder strap to it if you don't want to show that off. But I personally think that the Fendi First is just a little bit more interesting than this particular bag. Is the Fendi First going to last as long as the Bottega pouch? Only time will tell. But at this point in time, I personally would go for the Fendi First because they are in a really similar price range. But I do think that for now I'm going to put this under maybe pre-loved. I'm not exactly sure, statistically speaking, what the most popular luxury piece is out there, but I would dare to guess that the Cartier Love bracelet is in the top 3, even though I am not a particularly big fan of this entire line from Cartier. I just think it's really, really, really overdone at this point, even more so than the Chanel Classic Flap. If I would tell you to avoid buying one piece, it would be the Cartier Love bracelet, just because I find it so overpriced for what it is. I have an entire video talking about my thoughts on the Justin Clerc and Cartier Love line, so if you want to hear my thoughts and my sort of reasoning why I don't like it, I have that video linked up here for you to watch. But this is a piece that I really would not buy unless you can get it pre-loved, because Fashionphile, for example, always has like tens, if not hundreds of them available. Sometimes they are a fraction of the retail price, others they are really close to the retail price because their prices do fluctuate. I'm not sure what sort of influences that, but depending on when you look, sometimes you can find a piece in excellent condition for a fraction of the retail price, others you're only going to be saving a couple $100, if that. But I can personally tell you that I would definitely not walk into Cartier and buy a Love bracelet brand new, because I just don't think it's worth the hype, the price. It's uncomfortable, it doesn't look great, I don't like the inspiration behind it. Overall, for me, the Cartier Love bracelet is it the worst thing? I don't think so, but maybe it's something that you could look into buying pre-loved. Next up, the Sac de Jour from Saint Laurent, which is a bag that I'm pretty sure I talked about before. This is one of those pieces that I think makes the perfect piece to jumpstart your luxury collection. If you've always wanted to invest and get yourself a luxury bag, but you never knew where to start, I think the price range, the branding, the style, the design makes this the perfect starter kit for anyone out there. I love the design, I love the idea, I love the functionality. It is kind of similar to the idea of the Birkin, although you do get a shoulder strap, which is going to make your life a lot easier. But I think that the overall design and the structure, the interaction of the bag itself, makes it stand on its own and it doesn't look like an intentional dupe of a Birkin. Yes, it's a similar classic timeless top handle structure, but it doesn't feel like the brand was just trying to copy an Hermes Birkin like we've seen that in the past. So for me, the Soc de Jour is definitely a piece that is worth looking into. And last but not least, the iconic, the infamous Hermes Birkin, which this is going to be an easy one. It's overrated. No, I'm just kidding. Could you guys imagine? I do think that the Birkin is one of those pieces that really the hype for this particular piece I can completely understand, because it is such an iconic, classic, timeless shape, size, that you can buy this today and pull this out 20 years from now, and first of all, it will be in great shape as long as you take care of it, and you won't have to worry about it looking completely beaten up, and something that you bought for like 99 cents from the thrift store, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with. But if you're spending so much money on a piece, I don't think that's the look that you're going for. And it is just one of those pieces that won't look outdated or old, in my opinion at least. And you know that the quality you can rely on. The quality of an Hermes bag is just next level. If you have a chance to feel it for yourself, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And yes, all of Hermes's bags are impeccably made, but there is just something really special when it comes to the way Birkins and Kellys are put together. Obviously, I could have talked about the Kelly here too, but I do think that the Birkin is the bag that most people think of when they hear Hermes. Personally, I'm more of a Kelly kind of person than a Birkin person, but I do think that if you don't mind spending this kind of money on a bag and it's not a burden on you, it is very much worth the investment and the hype. Now, do I think that you should absolutely move mountains and sell your firstborn just so you can get your hands on this bag? Absolutely not. Go for a Lady Dior, go for a Soc de Jour over this piece. But if you get a chance to get it and it's really not something that would burden you and it would make you happy, I'm sorry to say, but I do think it is very, very much worth the hype. And this is my rating and ranking of some of the most iconic luxury pieces out there. Now it's your turn. Please do share in the comment section what would be your rating, what would be your ranking. Do you agree with mine? Do you disagree with anything? Would you place something somewhere else? If you would, what would you put where? Please let us know. I am curious to see your comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And if there are any other ranking videos that you'd like to see from me, please do share. I'm more than open to doing more of them because they are so much fun to film. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you back here with a new video really, really soon. But for now, bye.